Ron Goodall, FightHype.com. Have the pleasure to be joined by Richard Torrez, or I have the pleasure to be on Richard Torrez's podcast, his setup. He makes his ring return April 5th. Main event, Las Vegas, Palm Casino Resort, ESPN. I mean, how does that sound? Like, what does that feel like? Just me reading that all out.
Man, it's unbelievable, because you're always like wanting it and wanting to go for the main event and hoping one day it happens. And to have my first main event be in Vegas, nonetheless, it's just an incredible feeling. And I can't wait to show that becoming a main event wasn't a fluke or isn't just like like a surprise thing. Like, no, I'm here to stay.
You know, you fought good opponents, step ups, but this is like everyone's saying this is the step up. We've seen Vianello just beat Arslan Beck, which was this guy who was cracking his neck and knocking people out on a regular basis. So he's ranked, I believe, like 15 in WBO. So this is like your first opponent in that kind of Google search where you look at boxing rankings, and it's like, this is more than likely to get you in a top position in rankings now. So what do you think about your opponent? And of course, you're ready, but I gotta ask, are you ready for this step up in your career?
Yeah, I think Guido's a great opponent, a great guy, a great boxer. I think he's tall, he has some length, and he's a fellow Olympian as well. So I'm not overlooking, I'm not undershooting him at all. I'm excited. I'm preparing very well for this fight. And with that being said, I am ready. With knowing that there's a tough opposition against me, with knowing that there's a guy that's had the rings on his gloves before too. I'm training hard and I'm ready for some action.
Everyone that you faced, right? Essentially, you dropped stops or that awkward moment of the Joey DeVaco fight where the mouthpiece kept coming out. So I'm gonna count that as like,
I
a
appreciate that.
stoppage. But, there's some slickness with Vianello. He's only been stopped one time against Jonathan Rice, and I believe it was just a cut. Not like a vicious knockout, things like that. So he's tough. He has a lot of durability. Do you feel like you need to knock him out essentially, or just get the win and that's good enough, or a little bit of both?
I think that the DeVeco fight against Joey kind of helped me out a little bit because it took away the knockout streak.
Hmm.
Whether or not we still kind of count it, sometimes I do. But I don't go into the fight looking for the knockout. I figured from an early age in the amateurs that when you go look for the knockout, it never comes. So I'm going out there to show my boxing ability. I'm going out there to show everything we've prepared for in the gym. And I'm going out there just to give a great fight. And with my style, uh, the way I like to get inside, the way I like to have a fight, I feel like it's going to be a great one. I'm not looking to. I don't think I have to knock him out. I think that end of the day, if your hand gets raised, then that's a good job, a job well done. But with that being said, I am looking to make a statement and I am looking to put on a great show.
I know you've said this in the past, but like, do you think this is an opponent will that'll allow you to show your boxing abilities? I know we've seen glimpses, but it just seems at a point where you kind of take over, you kind of overwhelm them, and maybe the word is not exactly this, but you kind of like maul them, like you just destroy them. I think I was watching the Hefty fight again, and it was devastating, dude. So like, do you feel this fight will allow you to show your amazing amateur background, your Olympic pedigree style, and just kind of show there's levels outside of just breaking someone's skull open?
Yeah, I sure hope so. And that's what I've been preparing for. Like it's difficult sometimes when you get in the ring and you feel them go because I'm gonna take advantage of that opportunity. I'm gonna get you out of there. I don't get paid for overtime, right? But I am excited because I do think Guido is the guy to show, or he's a worthy opponent, and he's a guy that is going to get in there. He's in box. He knows what he's doing. He's an Olympian. So since he has that background and pedigree, I'm gonna have to show mine as well. So I'm grateful to be able to share the ring with them because I think that's a perfect opportunity to, like you said, to show that I actually have some other abilities besides hitting hard or going like or going all nonstop.
Hmm. The heavyweight landscape seems like it's going to be completely changed, or even like an old face is coming in. And I guess I'll ask that question first. It seems like everything's going to change. And all of a sudden, Vladimir Klitschko, somewhere along the line, I don't know if you heard Tom Loeffler's like, he's thinking about coming back and trying to beat the George Foreman. I mean, I don't know if you heard that,
I
but
didn't hear that. No, it's crazy. Really?
yeah, and
Oh man.
he said it, but we gotta see, right?
Uh-huh.
But it's not the first time, but it's word that he's thinking about wanting to come. This Tom Loeffler said it,
Okay.
coming out and wants to fight for a title. So, do you like that idea, and do you see yourself having to fight this era's George Foreman in this sense?
I think that'd be amazing. Klitschko, in my personal belief, was one of the reasons that heavyweight boxing kind of died off. Not because he wasn't a great fighter, just because he was such a great fighter that he just like lasted a decade. And everyone was like, well, everyone knows Klitschko's gonna win. So to have some boxing royalty like that get back in the ring, oh, I'd love that. And I think also with the heavyweights, power is the last thing to go, for everyone. Like the speed goes, sometimes their feet go, conditioning go, but you always have that one punch saver.
Hmm.
With that being said, though, uh, I kind of feel like I'd bring the new with the old. So I bring that conditioning, I bring that stamina, and I would love to see how that fight kind of plays out. But hey, man, if he comes back, that I'd watch the fights definitely.
Yeah, I would assume it would be like maybe against Daniel Dubois because, countryman, you probably don't want to do it unless Usyk drops the belt. But if it
Yeah,
becomes vacant, Usyk kind of retires or something, and then he does a Dubois fight, they undisputed, and all of a sudden he's done. There's a huge chance that maybe when these belts get grabbed up, you could be one of them, and maybe you and Flack can make it happen, right?
that'd be awesome.
I guess my last couple questions is, I guess a little more personal. Is like you posted on Instagram. You have like all these funny things. Like you're a magician. You post funny stuff like, man, I caught a flight. I didn't read a memo. I caught feelings. But there was one that stood out, which was a little bit more like, I guess, deeper. And it was like mentioning like the amount of violence or something like you don't know how much violence it took to
Mm.
become this gentle. I think you know what I'm talking about. Can you elaborate a little bit? Like, because you seem like a always chill, nice guy. You talk with your hands essentially, and then you make a joke out of it, like sign language and stuff like that. But on that level, like, what did you mean by that?
I think you need to have the ability to be violent in order to be a gentle person. I feel like if you go through life not knowing how to, not having the ability and only being able to be gentle, I wouldn't necessarily call you that gentle. I would just say not having the capacity of being violent. I think that because I know what it's like to be hit and because I know what it's like to hit someone and I know the feeling of having a black eye, being cut, being knocked out, and I know the feeling of giving the cut, giving a black eye and knocking someone out. It really puts into a perspective of the human body and the human anatomy and how you should care for it a little bit more. Um, and so I see some of these guys that they get a lot of like hoopla and they want to go street fight, they want to go like stomp someone out, they want to do this. It's like, man, you don't understand, man. Like from every week since I was 8, sparring on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and being in the gym and just perfecting that craft. You don't you get a great understanding and appreciation of what a punch actually feels like and what a punch actually is. And I think that that's kind of the key behind what I was talking about is it takes violence to be gentle, and it takes the ability to be violent to have the ability to be gentle as well.
Mhm. Is that like your like Bruce Lee, like you got to be water, right? You can be
Oof.
calm, you can crash. Like, is that
Mhm.
kind of your sentiment towards that?
A little bit, yeah. It's kind of. I think Bruce Lee is a lot better at preaching than I am, man. You
No,
know what I mean?
no, that
And
was good though.
but like I think that what I try to get across is that in order for you to become gentle, you have to experience a little bit of violence.
You feel like outside of just boxing that you had to endure these type of things to become a man, and that's kind of some of the challenges that that led you to this successful point of your career.
I think boxing has helped me immensely in becoming the man I am today. Because it has put me through struggles. It's put me in the ring with guys that are like 6'6", 6'8" when I was younger. And I remember having to touch gloves and I had to touch gloves way up high because they were so much taller than me and walk back and be like, man, screw it, we're here now, and being able to overcome some of these fears, being able to overcome some of these just obstacles, has really just like made life a lot easier for me. So being able to overcome a lot of these violent tendencies in boxing has made life a lot more gentle as well.
That's awesome. Yeah. And I appreciate you sharing that. And my last question, which kind of I guess wraps around it. There's a guy who's a lot smaller than you, but doesn't, I guess, look at guys your size the same way. I think you might know who I'm hinting. It's a guy named Terrence Crawford who's kind of like, I think he picked you up one time when you were 220 pounds,
Uh-huh.
just locked his hands around and was just kind of like, I got you. Like,
Man, yeah. All right. I just want to point out, man, that I did not know we were going hard. We were in his kitchen. There was tile floor. All right. We were right next to the table, and I'm like, all right, we're just gonna kind of mess around a little bit. All of a sudden, he just locks his hands, and he's a strong dude. So as soon as I knew that those hands were locked, I was like, I'm done. So I can't. I was like, all right. And so like, and then I think he picked me up, and he got me. But I want my rematch, man.
yeah.
He's a great guy. But Terrence is, I could say he's competitive to the end, to the bitter end. And I'm super competitive as well. But he's one of those guys I feel like I'd race up the stairs if we just both had that look in our eyes, you know? And I'm it's really cool to be around someone that has that same mindset.
When you felt his strength, I guess where I'm getting at, it's like he's gonna be what people feel like he's facing a guy that's just way too big, right? We know that skill for skill, a lot of people pick Crawford over Canelo. And Canelo is also one of those top guys, but the big thing is they feel like he's too small, won't be able to handle a big guy. I mean, what do you think? Because I know that you were able to feel some of his physicality, and that's probably what he might need, you think?
I think once you have like you either have power or you don't have power. You know what I mean? And in the boxing game, once you know you have power, anyone can get knocked out. It's not a matter of how hard you get hit, it's about where you hit them. And I think Terrence has a great mentality and he knows where to hit people. And he is strong. He's physical. I mean, the dude trains at like a gym where there's it's like wrestling, jiu-jitsu, and boxing. So he has that grappling ability and he has that overall just like strength, and so I'm not worried about Terrence Crawford's power at all. I know it's there. And it's just him being able to go out there and perform. I think Canelo has some very sneaky and very good like ideas and game plans, and I'm excited to see how this plays out against each other. But yeah, I'm not worried about Terrence at all.
Do you think this would be a matter of just skill for skill? It's not size or power. It's just who's the better man that night.
I think it's game plan the game plan. If I'm
Hmm.
being completely honest with you, I think both of them have incredible skill. I think both of them have incredible strength. I think that this it comes down to game plan and who can follow the game plan and whose game plan is better.
Awesome. Well, look, I appreciate all the insight, Richard. It's good catching up with you. And before you know it, you're headlining, you're fighting a ranked guy. Next, I'm gonna have to ask 100 people about your fight when you face someone at that world championship level. And is Richard Torrez ready? Or maybe Vladimir Klitschko? Is he too old?
uh,
Is Richard too much? So, I definitely appreciate the time. For the fight fans, what do you want to tell them that'll be watching April 5th on ESPN or out in Vegas at the Palm Casino Resort? Watching this
I,
fight go down.
I think that if you've seen my fights before, I come for action. I stay in the guys' faces. I'm gonna make it an exciting night. And come April 5th, it's gonna be a great card, an exciting night, and you're gonna see some fireworks.
So, appreciate you having me on your podcast, man.
And I thank you for having me, man. I appreciate you.
All right.